Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Max Spoilers from MinnMax. We're a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better. This is a Max Spoilers for Space Jam: A New Legacy. My name is Ben Hansen, and I'm joined by Kyle Hilliard.
Hey, I was trying to dribble a ball with my orange bubbly. I don't know. It was ill-intentioned and poorly thought out. So
the two biggest basketball experts I know coming in with a hot review and a bunch of spoilers for the new Space Jam movie. So heads up, obviously spoilers for the new Space Jam. I'm sure there'll be spoilers for the old Space Jam, spoilers for anything Space Jam related, even apparently that Teen Titans Go episode where it's all about Space Jam. Have you seen this, Kyle?
Yeah, they aired the movie on Cartoon Network, and then they had Teen Titans characters commenting on it, which I actually thought was really a fun idea because I really like Teen Titans Go a lot, but I haven't made time to watch it.
That's right. So any sort of cross promotion of the Warner Brothers brands, Kyle is all about, and that's what we're here to talk about with the new legacy. By the way, for watching this on YouTube, thank you. You can unlock the podcast version of this very discussion and the podcast version of the Deepest Dives, which are huge community game clubs, including the podcast version of our upcoming Deepest Dive on Dead Space, by going to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. We appreciate the support. If you like this content, you can join it or support it over on Patreon. Kyle, Space Jam: A New Legacy. Give me your setting. Give me your backdrop. How are you watching this sucker? Which vibe are you in? Set the scene.
Oh, watched it online on HBO Go. Didn't go to the theater.
Yep, same here.
Went in with some optimism. I've watched the original Space Jam within the last 3 or 4 years and recognized that it's not a good movie, but it is very nostalgic and fun and funny, and there's a lot I like about it.
By the way,
I did not go into this with the What's that?
Quick note, I was looking up some articles about the original Space Jam. Wikipedia lists the original Space Jam as, quote, a semi-biographical live-action/animated sports comedy film, which is accurate, but just the most insane. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Okay, so you went into the sequel with what attitude?
I think with appropriate expectations.
Yeah.
I just thought it would be very commercial. You know what I mean? I don't know if there would be a scene of LeBron James eating McDonald's in his hotel room, but I went in with tempered expectations, not expecting a masterpiece, hoping for some laughs, hoping for some fun Easter eggs.
Yeah.
I feel like I got that for the most part, Okay, so your tone for Space Jam: New Legacy is, yeah, okay. Yeah, I think so. It's a weird thing. I don't know how much we want to get into the review side of it, but you look at Rotten Tomatoes and you always kind of compare your own opinion against that score, even though it is a lots of different reviewers.
Right.
So it's weird for me to say that it feels low, but I was surprised how low the Rotten Tomatoes score was. I'm not saying it's needs to be a monumentally higher, but I think it was 30 last time I checked, and I was like, man, I thought they were going to get out of the woods with a 60, or something like that.
Yeah, sitting at a 31 right now. I haven't really been too clued in. I've got whiffs of the internet just dunking on this film, really going to town on it. Maybe it all goes back to the Lola Bunny stuff. I don't know exactly what has the internet's ire, but every once in a while I see just a glimpse of wait, are people outraged about that new Space Jam movie because it wasn't good? It's Space Jam, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I travel in a circle of gamers on Twitter, and a lot of people upset about the opening Game Boy sequence.
Very understandable.
For a lot of unfair reasons, a few fair ones.
Yeah, so the opening Game Boys, the fact that they have a color background and that it seems like LeBron James's main connection to the Looney Tunes is, oh yeah, I played some bad Game Boy platformer that featured the Looney Tunes. So it's that's a sad state of, I guess, Looney Tunes in the 90s, but it's very strange because the peak of Looney Tunes in the 90s, I believe, has to be Space Jam, which is a movie that canonically exists within this world, but LeBron James seemed to have no recollection of it. It's you really dodged Space Jam, man.
That bothered me because they have one joke that this feels familiar.
Yes.
Which is that's it. But literally when they're showing algorithms movie posters, Space Jam's on there.
Yeah. And it's not even, exactly. When they're during the opening of the presentation, when Sarah Silverman really wringing every dollar worth out of Sarah Silverman with this amazing comedic powerhouse performance.
Reprising her role from pop star as weird
basically,
marketing person.
But they established that Space Jam does exist. And then it's okay, so Bugs and Lola remember Space Jam, but none of the other Looney Tunes remember playing basketball.
But look, you know what? I misspoke. There's one big joke where Bugs Bunny is like, oh, this feels familiar. But there is another really big joke. I would argue, maybe the best joke in the movie, my favorite joke, that specifically references the star of the previous film in a big way and how they all seem to know him, but don't really talk about it too much.
Yeah, so this is the big joke about like, well, we're down in halftime, but we have a secret weapon coming in to help us in the second half. We have Michael Jordan. And then Michael B. Jordan walks in, which is an excellent joke. I'm a little bitter because I watched this like on a projector outside my backyard with like Grant, star of Hitman 3, and producer Amy, all those folks. And Grant stepped on the joke. Like, he guessed where it was going immediately. And I really wish that he wouldn't have, because I don't think I would have pieced it together. But I was in that mode of like, why would they say Michael Jordan before they show him? Something's up. But yes, that was probably the best moment of the movie, right?
Yeah, no, I wasn't trying to predict it either necessarily. But for me, it was very much like, he's actually going to have a cameo. That's really exciting. Right. And then like, just the joke of, you got Michael B. Jordan, we need Michael A. Jordan. It's like, I feel like we've been sitting on a Michael B. Jordan joke for like decades, and this was the perfect he's probably been offered that a dozen times and has been like, nah. But this one, he was like, no. It's time for the Michael Jordan joke in this one. Yeah,
because it's like, his buddy Ryan Coogler produced it, which is still wild to think about. Like, I don't know how many interviews are out there, but I would love just a 3-hour interview with Ryan Coogler talking about his experience trying to get this new Space Jam off the ground, because it's been a long time coming. They shuffled directors, but I think I'm burying the lead, Kyle, because this movie floored me. And maybe I was just in a good mood and I had a couple beers in me, but this entire movie I was like, it felt like a fever dream. It is, I think, the nastiest, grossest film I've seen in a long time, just on a brand level, corporation level. At the same time, it's like, this is, because I'm a dork, I think this is the most thought-provoking movie I've seen in years. I swear to God, like, I was just like, I can't handle, there's too many things to unpack here. This is too weird. It's too much. It is blowing my mind that this is the world of Space Jam now, is just mashing up as many possible Warner Brothers universes in just the grossest, nastiest way possible. Like, here you go, you idiots. You like these characters? Here, just have more of them. It is just an abomination. But the fact that it's abomination about corporate abominations made me actually like this movie.
That should have been the subtitle, honestly, instead of A New Legacy, just Abomination.
It really would have helped, yeah. But I mean, you're somebody who, well, here's a little behind the scenes story. I remember one time we were on a cover story trip and we were back at Game Reform, we were eating dinner or maybe having some drinks with a marketing guy, trying to understand what made him tick. And he said, at the end of the day, man, I just love brands. It's like, what?
Do you remember that? I remember that.
That's what this movie feels like.
Let me lock that into the back of my brain for the rest of eternity, because that is the weirdest sentence I've ever heard a human person say to my face.
Just really getting to know. But he was kind of the algae rhythm of his day, Like, he really understood what was going on here.
I mean, was there a line where it crossed for you?
Yeah.
Because it was like the first... we can go through it a little bit, I guess. The first big thing is like you go to Superman animated world, which is fun. Yeah. And then there's a Harry Potter joke. They fly by Harry Potter and like LeBron James gets to learn what house he's in. But the line that crossed to me where I was like, oh my God, this is insane, was when they just wholesale pulled a scene from Mad Max and put it in the movie, but just animated Looney Tunes on top of it.
I mean, you say cross the line. That was the moment where I was like, oh my God, I am so happy that wasn't in any of the trailers. Like, that was maybe my peak delight in the movie, was seeing that of like, God, of course, Mad Max and Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, of course. And he holds up the sign that says, witness me. That is, and I am having a tough time even expressing it now, because it delighted me. At the same time, I think it's objectively a stupid thing and a very shallow thing for a company to do. But at the same time, it's like, I like seeing it. That's the point of the movie, is that shrug of like, well, I guess this is fun to look at. But my line where there was no going back and I was lost in my own soul was when they flew by the Casablanca planet. That stuff freaked me out. And then later when they have the whole scene, like, you know, the play it again, Sam scene, it's Yosemite Sam. That is just like, we're sitting in my backyard and still I'm looking around like, is anybody else seeing this? Like, what the hell is this movie? Going for a Casablanca audience? Like, grandparents, even like our parents would be like, yeah, I guess I maybe saw that movie once. Like, I don't know who's passionate about it. Maybe it's just the film studies major or something coming through, but like, this is truly insane that they're shoehorning Casablanca into a Space Jam movie. It should not be. It cannot be.
I mean, another weird experience of a factor of watching it at home with my 9-year-old daughter was like, after the Mad Max scene, I paused it and I was like, okay, so that's a movie about the apocalypse. Like, she was genuinely interested. Like, what was I just looking at? And I was like, this is a movie about, it's like I just briefly explained it to her. And then we're like, all right, let's move on and then play. And then it's like, there's the Matrix scene. And I was like, yep, that's an older movie. It's really cool. I don't want to tell you too much of the plot in case you do end up watching it one day, but it's kind of about the computers and stuff like that.
And the Austin Powers stuff, did you really sit her down for that?
Oh, I had totally forgotten about that, honestly.
That was bonkers.
Slipped my mind, yeah.
And that's one of those where it's like, that's Warner Brothers? I guess so. And the other one that is just so disgusting is at the end when Don Cheadle, in his greatest performance since that Emmy-nominated performance in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, when he says, King Kong ain't got nothing on me. And then King Kong's in the background going like, whoa, me? Whoa, ooh. And then I had to look it up like, okay, obviously Training Day, of course, distributed by Warner Brothers. It's just like, how long have they been waiting for that Training Day King Kong idea of like, well, these are both our movies. Now we can finally slap them together and have Don Cheadle saying it is just so ridiculous.
I'm trying to think back now with that kind of thing, right? Like, you don't necessarily you can say that line in a movie without having the rights to King Kong. I'm trying to think now. The original Space Jam had that Pulp Fiction reference.
Oh, what was that?
Was that under the same umbrella? Like,
no, that's
like,
MinnMax, right? So that would have been Disney at that point.
I feel like now I'm thinking, I never even connected the dots, but it's almost like someone just really was into that Pulp Fiction gag in Space Jam, and they're like, no, let's make a whole movie around that.
I know. I mean, this is the type of movie where I end up thinking about lawyers more than screenwriters, which is probably not a good sign for movies. You know, but like watching this, I kept overthinking everything just about like, why there are multiple Steve Jobs references in this movie. And I'm like, is there any corporate reason why that would be happening? And of course, it just gets more absurd with HBO Max and Warner Brothers like being torn apart at this point and kind of Warner Brothers being split apart. So like, who knows how much of a weird old legacy this movie is going to be, just like a time and a place. Here's technically the licenses that we could have. But in a lot of ways, it feels like the extension of the Lego movie stuff. Like Lego Batman was certainly in this wheelhouse, and now it's just taking that and going even further. But I think my big question for Space Jam: New Legacy is, does it get credit for making fun or trying to tear down the idea of corporate synergies while being the most corporate synergistic film of all time?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of like, this is a weird, just because my mind goes to video games. In the video game, Duke Nukem Forever,
yes,
there's
a puzzle where you have to turn valves, right? And he has a line in that game where he's like, oh, I hate these valve puzzles, which is like a dig at like Half-Life puzzles, you know?
Sure.
And it's like, when you do something like that, it's like, hey, the puzzle was still not fun. Like, just because you're making fun of it doesn't mean it was like,
it's the classic
enjoyable.
It's the Uncharted bit of like, another wave of enemies. It's like, yeah, you put them there,
yes.
Game. What do you want from me?
Yeah. So yeah, that's where I'm at kind of with that. You know what I mean? It's like, you can make fun of it, but you're still like capitalizing on it to this insane degree.
Right. I do just love the idea of like, we built Warner 3000, this very high-end algorithm, and it came up with the idea of putting the biggest athlete in the world into Game of Thrones. That's like its big vision. It's like, what? Really? Great computer? You said combine the two super popular things, but all right, that's a LG rhythm. But like, it gets so weird when it's like, hey, Warner 3000, we're watching you. We're seeing you at all times. Like, it is, I'm sure that, if the screenwriters really wanted to crawl up their own butts, or Coogler, or like what I assume are the smarter people involved in the production of this movie, they could say like, oh, we're satirizing the company from within the company. Like, there's an angle that they could have, which is that idea of acknowledging how insane it is that a giant corporation's doing this. But I think this movie overall,
they still have to get approval from everything.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Right? I mean,
yeah, there should be more punk rock.
If you have to ask permission if the joke is okay, then it's like the joke's probably pretty sanitized,
Right. But it's just wild to think about, like, this is a movie that can only be made by somebody not in the number one media spot. I don't think Disney would ever go this hard for combining all their stuff. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I probably within 10 years, it'll happen in a huge way that's almost as disgusting as this. I guess kind of Ralph Breaks the Internet,
Ralph
right?
Breaks the Internet. Yeah, I mean, that was pretty close.
It gets close, but it's not as much as this. When we were starting to talk about like, the freaking crowd in the basketball game, this movie should be called Space Jam: Distracting Extras, because just
100%. I just was totally lost during the basketball game because it was all just me trying to see who was in the background, who's slightly out of focus, which Halloween Express did they get that Joker costume from? These are the questions I had while I was watching.
It is insane. Yeah, there's stuff like, okay, we got the mask back there, and it's like, does that guy put on his resume, I was the mask? Like, is the idea that those are canonically supposed to be the characters that are watching the mask? Because they all looked slightly off and horrific in their own words. Like, hey, here's the Night King, or here's Danny DeVito's Penguin. It's like, well, that's weird because Danny DeVito was the voice in the first Space Jam. But okay, I won't think too much about it. It gets messy.
Yeah.
But so do you think?
Then, the Monstars are there.
Yep.
Very quickly, they at least get like a front and center shot. And the other one was like the one that stuck out to me as being weird was like, okay, there's a bunch of Batman characters back there, but it's like weirdly specific. Like, that's Batman and Robin, Mr. Freeze, or that's Batman Returns Penguin. You know what I mean? Right. It's not just like generic Riddler or something. It's like they really pulled from the specific films, and the costumes are just like, they're just off slightly. You know what I mean? Like, they look odd.
Why? That's what I can't figure out. It's just a budget reason? You couldn't afford to get costumes for 100 people?
Maybe it would have been too distracting to have like a really, a screen accurate Catwoman from Batman Returns in the background,
So was that a Mr. Freeze behind Algae Rhythm? Because Grant was saying like, is that Sub-Zero? Is that who that's supposed to be? And I know Mr. Freeze was in it in other spots, but I wasn't sure.
I don't know. Was there Mortal Kombat?
I don't think so.
Unless say Sub-Zero.
Yeah. Unless that was.
In that, it's funny because my immediate reaction is like, oh, you can't have Mortal Kombat characters in a Space Jam, even as an Easter egg. But it's like they had a scene from Mad Max in it. They had the sort of the Clockwork Orange characters like in the background.
It's fun. And I saw people, obviously bringing up the point of like, okay, Pepe Le Pew is too much, but the Clockwork Orange characters are okay. Like, Jesus Christ. The one that got me, because again, it's all just disgusting, vile corporate work. And then the one that was like, oh no, not you too. When frickin' Space Ghost was there, I'm like, Space Ghost, you're my boy. You can't be here. You can't be doing this. You're cooler than this, man. Or like
not the version that they're referencing, if you want to think about it, right?
I guess
not
that's
the original Space Ghost cartoon version.
Yeah, the Rick and Morty stuff, pop it in there.
Weird. Like really front and center. Like they had like a couple lines where they're like flying around in space, but they weren't just hanging out in the background of the basketball game.
No, I tried to look up, a thorough list of all the Easter eggs, and it's all just like Newsweek's list where it's like, LeBron James is an Easter egg because he's a basketball star. It's just like the most obvious crap. I'm like, I wanted to get nitty gritty because there's some like Satan character that kept popping up and I couldn't figure out exactly who he was and how that tied into everything. But
is this like, we talked about Ralph Breaks the Internet, but I mean, is this Ready Player One is the other one, right? Is like the true sort of innovator, right?
Yeah,
like,
and that was also Warner Brothers.
I only just came to my head just now.
Yeah, God, that's insane. Yeah, because that was Warner Brothers. So it was a lot of that same stuff about we have King Kong chasing him on the road. We got the Battleborn characters you know and love. We have that alien chest burster popping out of Goro's chest, which is still one of those scenes that's like, remember when that happened in a Spielberg film? Like in his highlight reel when he passes during the Oscars, just going to show a chest burster coming out of Goro, I think.
Yeah.
You're right. But you're right. It seems like Warner Brothers is just hitting it hard, trying to make the most of the IPs they own, which was another scene that really made me laugh was when LeBron James is like, okay, we got to put together a basketball team. All right. Who do we got? Then he goes to the whiteboard and immediately starts writing down the greatest hits from Warner Brothers property. It's like, what the hell does he know? He's immediately like, okay, Trinity, and then we have the rights to King Kong for another 3 years. Let's see.
Real quick, I did like King Kong is like a very obvious joke, but I was happy to see Trinity on that list because I was like, why isn't Neo like number one? If you're going to have a Magic basketball game, like get the man who can manipulate reality to his will.
Do you think, that's as simple as like, we got too many men on here, so obviously we want to represent the Matrix, but okay, let's go for Trinity. Then we'll have Trinity's big scene be like the granny scene just to continue this bizarre trend. But obviously this movie's all about video games. It's all about it because his son is not making a video game. They kept saying building a video game, which is one of those things like, I guess that's fine, but he should just say making, right?
Impressive that he's making NBA Street.
Yeah, he's finally releasing the new NBA Street with classic characters such as Wet Fire and all those other folks. Kronos, who has like the big, scene that's basically just Quicksilver again of him slowing down time. Where I had that moment of like, wait, yeah, but that's Fox,
like
but then that's Disney.
Here, X-Men, gotta have a character who can pause time. Very important.
But it's such an easy reaction. Like I'd imagine your daughter got a kick out of that scene, right? Oh
yeah, it's funny. I don't know what it was that stood out to her the most, but like she, like me, was during the basketball game. I was almost kind of like a little more checked out. Like I was having more fun when we were jumping between movie worlds.
Right? Because not that you were hanging on the edge of your seat for the first movie's basketball game, but at least that's like basketball and you can wrap your mind around it. Whereas this, it's like, okay, so the rules don't matter and it's just complete absurdity. Like it's just a video game. I guess there's no sports drama happening. Anyway? Yeah, it's exactly that. It's tough to get invested in exactly what's going on here. But, they still have that fun idea of Looney Tunes can push it a little bit. And I like more in this one, I think, than in the original. They kind of tie into that Who Framed Roger Rabbit aspect of like the Looney Tunes, like they just want wackiness. Like they are driven only towards absurdity, like during the training stuff. Like they could just not focus on it. And it's like, okay, I like that because I like Roger Rabbit. So therefore... I guess I got to be on board for at least this hint of something. What do you think about the Looney Tunes overall?
I don't know. They felt very like Bugs got a lot of screen time and Lola.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone else was like, I don't think kids will watch this and walk away with a favorite Looney Tune character.
That's true.
Maybe that's just me making too many assumptions about other people's viewing habits, but I didn't watch the movie and feel like, oh man, Bugs Bunny was really cool in that. You know what I mean? Where I feel like thinking back to when I watched the original Space Jam when I was younger, I feel like I did have some of that.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like having a favorite character and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was, nice that they had the 2D animation for a while. It's like, oh, it's cool to see them going back to that. I guess there's like a new Looney Tunes series airing on HBO Max at least that has like 2D animation and stuff. So it's cool that
there was one from 2011 where like Kristen Wiig plays Lola Bunny.
What?
Yeah, it's on HBO Max. I only once the Space Jam news started happening, people started sharing clips of Kristen Wiig as Lola Bunny. It's really very funny because she's just insane. She's just an insane person in that show. She's completely different from the character in Space Jam.
Oh, weird. I gotta check that out. By the way, Kyle, if I polled 100 people on the street and said, spell Looney Tunes, how many people would spell it correctly, do you think?
More than you think, because that's like the logo is very memorable, I think.
So what's your number, 60?
Yeah, I think it's like more than half, for sure.
I'd put it at 15.
LOONEYTUNES, like that logo, I feel like is iconic, It's iconic, but I think you just grazed past that confusing tunes versus tunes thing. And it's only TUNES because it's like a silly symphonies spiritual. Well, I guess it's Merry Melodies. So I think the way it goes is, Disney had Silly Symphonies, and then Warner had Merry Melodies, and then Looney Tunes is it
continuation of Merry Melodies. And so they wanted to keep that.
Which has now morphed into Space Jam, which is still kind of a musical sort of thing.
I mean, that is the crazy thing about thinking about, they have set themselves up for, if they want to make another Space Jam movie, it can be absolutely any sport, anywhere, any medium, any competition whatsoever across any of their IP, and they can call it Space Jam. It's diabolical. It's straight out of Algae Rhythm's playbook, you know?
Well, that was the plan, rumored, right? Supposedly, is like Tony Hawk was in talks to do a Space Jam.
Way back
like
in the day.
Jackie Chan
Yep,
Space
Jeff
Jam
Gordon.
while,
There's going
right?
to be a race jam. Yeah, so they could get back to all that stuff if they really wanted to. I guess it depends on the success of this, but unfortunately, Bugs Bunny did die at the end, so I don't know if they'll be able to go back and use it. Right. That was such a weird moment. But then
which doesn't matter at all because he's back in 5 minutes.
Right. He's in the real world naturally. I thought it was interesting that when LeBron first gets to Looney Tunes world, like all of the best jokes and like the big jokes is Bugs Bunny taking Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner's jokes. There's a part of me where it's like, those aren't your jokes, Bugs. Like those are your friends' jokes. You can't just say, they're all Looney Tunes now, and you get to do all these jokes. And I don't know if you're
they're not around.
Okay. I don't know if you're kind of sure, Kyle, but there were 3 fake paintings jokes in this film. 3 of them.
Not enough.
Not
Need more.
enough. It's a good week for
the
fake.
new Jackass trailer.
I was just going to bring up. They have that same thing. Yeah. And just because I can't stop bringing it up, it's still the greatest moment in any video game of all time is in Sheep Raider on the PlayStation 1, the Looney Tunes game. There is a sequence where you're racing as Wile E. Coyote. Yeah, it must be. And you are running through a tunnel on a road, and then it turns out that the tunnel wasn't real, and it was just a texture on a mountain in front of you, and the road actually curved to the left. But like, it's amazing. It's like, I actually fell for the thing. It's just, that's the power of video games, man.
They did it. That's amazing.
Let's see. Other things we didn't hit on. E3 gets huge billing here. The E3 Game Builders Convention, whatever the hell they call it.
Which my wife and I quickly Googled. I was like, that's not a thing.
No.
Right? Which is not.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely not. But amazing branding for an organization that seems to be going down in flames. But it's like, that's the best representation they're going to have all year, is like that big billing for Space Jam.
They should have had Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest development camp or whatever they call it.
I'm sure Keighley was pushing for it hard. He was pushing for a whole Keighley planet that they fly by. Whoa, look at those exclusives.
Look at those Mountain Dews.
Let's see. There was the spaceship that had A113 on it, which is one of those weird things of like, I don't know about these non-Disney, non-Pixar companies referencing that.
Well, because I mean, it's from an animation school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. From
So,
Cal
I mean,
Arts.
if you went there and you're an animator, I feel like that's okay. It doesn't belong. It's not owned by Pixar, but I mean, they've sort of popularized it.
They started it and
it was
popularized
distracting
it
for me.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that's fair. If you went to the school, then it's fair game. Let's see. Other things we haven't hit yet, Kyle? Is there anything that stands out to you?
The machine that throws a ball at your head when you say ball. That had some funny gags from that.
Solid gags. LeBron's acting. We haven't really touched on it. I think people were being dicks about it. Man, go back and watch the first Space Jam if you are convinced that Michael Jordan was a good actor. Because I just went back and watched most of it today, and it was rough going.
It's pretty rough. Yeah. Although I will say I had higher expectations from LeBron. Like I thought he would be better than he was. Like he's still like a super charismatic guy. He's fun to watch on screen and all that stuff. So like it's not like I was bored watching him, but like, you know, he's been in films before and has been very funny in films before. So I was a little surprised that he was like kind of a little muted.
I think it's just a testament, I think, maybe to Judd Apatow's directing for Trainwreck, that he was able to get that performance out of him. I think it took a lot of work to try and make sure that he was comfortable and try and coach him in just the right way. Whereas this, where it's like, you're just standing in a green room, go. Like that's hard for pros, I have to imagine. So I'm sure LeBron is just like, yeah, I'll pretend I'm talking to you. Somebody say, I'm sure. How hard can it be? Whatever. Is basically the Hook storyline of Algae Rhythm taking his son and kind of converting him over to his side. So I appreciated that subtle Hook homage.
I know Dustin Hoffman cameo though. I don't know.
There wasn't a Tootsie Planet that they flew by, which I don't know what they were thinking. It is a weird film, a film that I got strangely excited watching and I can't stop thinking about. And in my darkest moments, Kyle, I was even thinking like, maybe I should go to the theaters because I just want to see like how a full crowd reacts to some of this just absurd stuff of the serververse, what it can truly provide for entertainers here.
Do you, maybe because we're both kind of blind in this aspect, like I have seen vitriol surrounding the movie. Some people really, really strongly dislike it. Do you know where that's coming from? Like, what is that? What is their sort of platform that they're upset about specifically? Because I make no argument that this is a good movie, but like I enjoyed it and found it completely inoffensive. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't sure what people were so upset about.
I enjoyed it despite the fact that I found it nothing but offensive, I think.
Oh,
that's my twisted take.
When I say offensive, I mean like bad filmmaking offensive.
I think it's the combo of like, it's not Michael Jordan, it's New Age Space Jam, they change things, it's not that funny, and it's just a gross corporate orgasm, I think is probably the basis. But
and Bill Murray's not in it, who is really genuinely hilarious in the original Space Jam.
I did go back and I watched all of his scenes today just to re-experience that.
They're so good. Yeah.
And it's like, that's just a thing that you took for granted in the 90s. Like, well, of course there's going to be a movie with Michael Jordan and Bill Murray together. Like, they're superstars, But it's like, as a kid, it was so bizarre just to be like, yeah, no, this guy from Ghostbusters that I love, and what about Bob that I love? Here he is, of course, interacting with the Looney Tunes. And he says, I like that moment too, because I just watched it a couple hours ago, where he comes back in the second half to save the Looney Tunes, and all that stuff in the basketball game. And then I think it's Daffy's like, I got to ask, how did you get here? And he just goes like, the producer's a friend of mine. Some Teamsters pulled some strings. Anyways, moving on. There's just like zero explanation of what the hell is happening with Bill Murray there.
It's perfect. It's like, it's so perfect. And then Ivan Reitman is the producer on the film who directed Ghostbusters, which just makes it like a fun, like.
Yep. All right. Well, that's it for this Max spoilers on Space Jam: A New Legacy. Let us know what you loved or hated or love to hate in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube. And to close it all out, I guess Kyle will do a little performance of his favorite scene from the film, Notorious P.I.G. All right, take it away, Kyle.
I can't even begin to remember what the rap was. I was going to pretend to spray paint my face and say, "Witness me."
Oh, that's good. That's good. By the way, if you're just watching this, the MinnMax Show podcast is going to be a little bit delayed. Just so you know, that's going to be going up on Thursday, a little bit later in the evening, because we want to cover EA Play and all that stuff. And we're also officially announcing the deepest dive on Dead Space, the original, tomorrow as well. So you can go and play that game along with us. You can support us on Patreon to unlock the podcast version of that, or you can submit a comment over on Patreon for us to read during the deepest dive on Dead Space. Let's see, Kyle, anything else? Oh, the commentary tracks for Lord of the Rings. We're recording the one for Two Towers this Thursday. You can watch us record it live and jump in the chat and join us, or you can just listen to it by supporting us over on Patreon. We'd appreciate the support. I think those are all the plugs we can plug, right, Kyle?
I think so.
All right.
Did it.
Cool. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Witness me. He did it.
Content like this exists because of you. Thank you so much for subscribing on YouTube, sharing it with a friend, and especially for supporting MinnMax on Patreon. Supporters at any tier on Patreon unlock access to MinnMax's Discord, the friendliest place on the internet, where you can compete in game trivia every month to win prizes with our show Trivia Tower. Thanks so much for watching and sharing our stuff, everybody.